Rick Perry. Governor Perry just endorsed fellow Texan Senator Ted Cruz, and Perry has been out and about today with Cruz on the campaign trail in Iowa. He joins me now from the town of Centerville. Governor, nice to see you, sir.
How are you, Brookie? It's nice, crisp weather up here in Iowa.
I take your word for it. I'll be there in 2 days. Let me just begin with, listen, from everything I've read, Governor, Ted Cruz has been relentless in getting your endorsement, personally coming to your ranch, picking up the phone and calling you daily. What did he say to finally secure your endorsement?
Actually, this was a process over the months. I actually didn't know Ted that well. I knew him from the caricature of the media, kind of through the political lens. And I wanted to know who he was as a man. I wanted to spend time with him. I wanted to look him in the eye and find out, what kind of person he really was. And what I found was, number one, a really good listener. I mean, I will tell you, from my perspective in this business, having someone that actually listens to you, not just being quiet, but listening and processing, is incredibly important. And the other thing I discovered was that Ted Cruz is one of these guys who actually knows what he doesn't know. And that is an absolute virtue when it comes to the President of the United States. There is no man or woman born yet, nor will be, that knows everything about government. They just can't. They've got to bring highly capable, experienced men and women to their team, empower them, authorize them to go run those agencies of government. The third thing, and I think this is very important for a person like me who's been a governor, is that Ted Cruz is the most powerful proponent of the 10th Amendment. Not only is he a Constitution-loving and Constitution-knowing individual, that 10th Amendment really means something to him. So devolving power out of Washington, D.C. back to the states, all of those collectively made me comfortable that this is an individual that not only can be, but should be, and will be ready to be president and commander-in-chief on day one.
All right, so you spelled it out. I mean, those are three powerful reasons to throw your support behind someone. But then I just go to the fact that, not a single Republican senator thus far has thrown his or her support behind Senator Cruz. Orrin Hatch said the Republicans would lose with Cruz as the nominee. Bob Dole made headlines just recently saying it would lead to cataclysmic losses, his word, for the party, that, quote, nobody him in Congress, and even finally just Bill Maher called Cruz evil and scarier than Donald Trump. How do you respond to all this negativity swirling around the guy you chose?
I don't think Bill Maher is going to have a lot of influence on the Iowa conservative caucus voters.
How about the other two?
Listen, I found out on my own. And I don't know whether those senators have spent any quality time with him or not. I did. I went to the trouble because I wanted to find out who is this individual, and I'm comfortable. I don't make my friends and I don't make my decisions by someone else's observation, particularly if I don't know. I respect both of those men greatly, but the bottom line is I know I've spent the time with the senator, and I am comfortable that not only is he going to be prepared to be president of the United States, he can win. And I think that is really important from my perspective. He's going to bring disaffected Democrats. He's going to bring minorities together. He's going to bring people that want to get Washington out of their business, devolving power out of Washington, D.C. back to the states. And that's what Senator Cruz, he believes in that. And he's a consistent conservative. I don't have to wonder whether he's going to be the same in 6 months or 6 years from now. He is. He's going to be the same.
What about, Governor, what about some of the bigger names who've thrown their support behind Donald Trump? Sarah Palin, who is someone who absolutely helped Ted Cruz, mount his successful Senate campaign. Just today, I'm sure you've seen the news, Liberty University president and perhaps one of the most prominent evangelical leaders of our time, Jerry Falwell Jr., he threw his support behind Mr. Trump. Liberty is the very place where Ted Cruz, kicked off his whole campaign. How big of a blow is that for Ted Cruz, someone who I know has prioritized securing the evangelical vote?
Well, and there's not any question about the evangelical vote being strongly behind Ted Cruz. Jerry Falwell will have to explain to his followers why he's supporting someone who stood up in front of the people of Iowa and said, when asked, have you ever done anything to ask forgiveness from God, said no. And Donald Trump basically offhandedly said, nope, never done anything that I thought was needed to ask God for forgiveness. So, the Reverend Falwell will have to explain to his followers why he's supporting someone who made that statement.
2013, I was in Washington, covered the federal government shutdown. You know, Ted Cruz was the face of that. And at the time, you called his idea of shutting down the government if Obamacare is not defunded, you called it nonsensical. Flash forward to today, you want that same person to win the White House. How will Ted Cruz lead with the judgment that you personally have criticized in the past?
Well, I've criticized a lot of things that happen in Washington, D.C. I've come from a state where we work together to find solutions, and I think shutting down government is nonsensical. But here's the more important issue. Ted Cruz said when he was elected in Texas, I'm going to go do everything I can to defund Obamacare. That's exactly what he was doing. So on the one hand, he did exactly what he said he would do. I think he was setting a marker. Listen, when I was the governor of Texas, my first term, I vetoed 82 bills because they tried to force things upon me that were against my philosophy. And there were people that came and said, Perry, you have ruined your political life. You can't veto that many bills. But I set the marker. After that,
but you didn't get in the way, with all due respect, Governor, you didn't get in the way of the government running and potentially sacrifice lots and lots of jobs of your own constituents for your own interests.
Well, I disagree with you. That's why it was done. So, but the point is, I think he was setting a marker, and being a United States Senator is substantially different than being the President of the United States. So, you know, my position on is you got to stand up for what you believe in. You got to set markers from time to time, and you know, every now and then you got to hit the mule up beside the head with a 2-by-4 to get its attention, and I think that's what the senator did.
Do you think Ted Cruz waited too long to really go on the attack, specifically when it came to Donald Trump?
Listen, I think the senator's going to make decisions about, you know, the timing of what he does with his campaign ads and what have you. So I hear him not taking the bait time after time out here on the campaign trail from the standpoint of talking about, you know, there's been a number of questions that were asked today where he could have attacked Donald Trump, but he talked about his positive vision for this country. There's plenty of folks out on the campaign trail that will question. You know, you had 22 clearly movement conservatives over the weekend come out and talking about their questions of Donald Trump's conservatism. Is he really a conservative? And the people of Iowa are processing that right now. They historically wait until pretty much the last moment to look at all of the information, make a good decision, and I think not only is Ted Cruz going to win Iowa, I think he's going to win pretty decisively.
Governor Perry, do you have any regrets? I mean, let me say this. I looked up. Donald Trump lists you as one of his trophies, his word, and taking you down during this race. You can respond to that. You can respond to that, and just straight up. I mean, do you think Trump had anything to do with your failed presidential campaign?
You know, I think a indictment, an absolute persecution probably of me by a Travis County District Attorney had a whole lot more to do with my inability to raise money than Donald Trump did. But, you know, if Donald wants to put me on the wall as one of his trophies, he's got a lot of trophies, that's for sure, of all kinds.
Any regrets?
No, not at all. Listen, I ran a good campaign. I talked about the issues that were important. The American people decided that Bobby Jindal and Scott Walker, Rick Perry, you know, it appears that, you know, they've decided that governors are not who they want being the next president of the United States. And you know what? I'm good with that. I may not agree with that, but I'm good with that because that's how this country works.
Governor Perry, I really appreciate the time. Thank you so much there in Iowa.
Thank you. So
Thank
long.
you.